Welcome to Texas, the Lone Star State. The Lone Star representing defiance, pride, and most importantly, independence from Mexico.
The golden arches is closed down. Wow. Keep the light on.
It's different right here. From the dark of night along Route 66, in the wee hours of the morning, we come upon the neon lights of the UDrop Inn Cafe in Shamrock. Built in 1936, the building is an Art Deco gem. It was designed to be three separate structures: the Tower Canoco Station, the UDrop Inn Cafe, which by the way got its name from a local schoolboy's winning entry in a naming contest, and what was supposed to be a retail store. Today it's a visitor center and the local Chamber of Commerce. It is one of the most imposing and architecturally creative buildings along the length of the road. In Disney's movie Cars, the UDrop Inn's distinctive architecture appears as Ramon's automotive body and paint shop. After seeing the UDrop Inn, now it's time to go across the street and see if the hotel's open. Thankfully it is, and they gave us a room with a great view. So about an hour out of Shamrock, we had the engine light come on. This morning was the time to reset it and see if it'll come back. This would happen off and on for the rest of the trip out west. A view of the UDrop Inn in the daylight. And back on the road we go. So right up here, when Ralph Britton opened up a truck stop, he installed a water tower along the road to garner attention. The tank was installed to look like it was about to fall over with two legs off the ground to catch the eye of passing motorists. It was incredibly successful and is one of the most photographed oddities on Route 66. Another thing Texas has a lot of: windmills. Maggie wanted to see them up close. I wanted to lay down underneath of one to even get a video. This abandoned motel and adjacent store was known as the Slug Bug Ranch. There are 5 wrecked Volkswagen Bugs buried hood down in the ground, a parody of the Cadillac Ranch 35 miles to the west. It was the idea of the owners of Longhorn Trading Post that once stood here to attract customers. Well, they do say everything's bigger in Texas. Next we come to the Big Texan Steak Ranch. Next door there is a very cute old western town looking motel. Would have been really nice to stay at this place. Not least of which for the 72-ounce steak next door. So the Big Texan Steak Ranch is home of the 72-ounce steak. The bull out front advertises free steak to anyone who in 1 hour or less can eat the entire meal, consisting of the steak itself, a bread roll with butter, a baked potato, shrimp cocktail, and a salad. Otherwise, the meal costs $72. Right up the street from the Cadillac Ranch is the Cadillac Ranch RV Park. In tribute, they've angled 3 vintage Cadillacs on pedestals near the derrick-style RV sign. It's not affiliated with the Cadillac Ranch, it just cashes in on their fame. And here we are at the famous Cadillac Ranch. This is a public art installation and sculpture in Amarillo, Texas. It was created in 1974 by the art group Ant Farm. The installation consists of 10 Cadillacs from between 1949 and 1963, buried nose first in the ground. Installed in 1974, the cars were either older, running, used, or junk cars, together spanning the successive generations of the car line and the defining evolution of their tail fins. Visitors are encouraged to pick up a spray paint can and add to the art. At the halfway point between Chicago and LA, you will find the Midpoint Cafe, a restaurant, souvenir, and antique shop in Adrian, Texas. Signage proudly declares a 1,139-mile distance to each original US 66 endpoint. And the cafe's slogan is, "When you're here, you're halfway there." Fran Hauser, the owner of the Midpoint Cafe from 1990 to 2012, is the basis for Flo of Flo's V8 Cafe in cars. Fran, the owner of the former Adrian Cafe, says the president and founder of the US Route 66 Association called me one day. He said, "Kid, you better do something because you're at the midway point of the Route 66. You need to change that name." And so it was done. This was a really cool stop, and the food was fantastic. Welcome to New Mexico, land of enchantment. New Mexico is blessed with stunning desert landscapes, breathtaking snow-capped mountains, bubbling hot springs, and remarkable national monuments. With its mix of European American, Native American, and Mexican heritage, the state is a unique and colorful place to visit. Given all that, perhaps it is a little wonder that New Mexico is known as the land of enchantment. In 1901, the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad built a construction camp in the western portion of modern-day Quay County. Originally called Ragtown, the camp became known as Six Shooter Siding due to numerous gunfights. Its first formal name, Douglas, was used for only a short time. After it grew into a permanent settlement, it was renamed Tucumcari. The name was taken from Tucumcari Mountain, which is situated near the community. Many of the scenes from the television show Rawhide, starring Clint Eastwood, were shot in the Tucumcari area. And it is the setting of one of the first scenes in Sergio Leone's 1965 film For a Few Dollars More, also starring Eastwood. Tucumcari until the mid-20th century was a junction for transcontinental train service. The Rock Island Railroad ran operations with the Southern Pacific, the Choctaw Rocket, and the Golden State. It is the largest city on the highway between Amarillo, Texas, and Albuquerque, New Mexico. Billboards reading "Tucumcari tonight," placed along I-40 for many miles to the east and west of town, invite motorists to stay the night at one of their 2,000 motel rooms. That was from their heyday, of course. Sadly, many of the motels now are abandoned, torn down, or boarded up. But one of the most iconic is still here. Built in 1939, the Blue Swallow Motel was later updated with a neon sign that advertised it as having TV and 100% refrigerated air. Lillian Redmond, who owned the motel from 1958 to 98, came to New Mexico with her family in 1915 in a covered wagon. We pulled off of Route 66 onto a dirt road, leading to a gas station and what looked like a ghost town. And while many of these buildings are abandoned, broken down, boarded up, there are people living in a few of them. Being from the East Coast, driving across the Midwest really was an eye-opener as to how a lot of the country lives. It's very different than the hustle-bustle and the convenience of the coasts. This is also about where the drive started to get really hot.
Oh, honey, I have a picture. What vacation would be complete without you trespassing where you shouldn't be? Very true. Pedro Romero Road.
Romero Ranch right on the other side. That's what the gate says. It's a private road also.
You can name your roads after yourself, I guess.
Yes.
Well, Pedro Romero died. He was 92 in 2013. He enjoyed taking care of his ranch, horseback riding, and taking care of his animals. What?
Roadrunner.
What is a roadrunner?
It was a roadrunner. It's a bird. It went right in that brush there. Somebody behind us, right? It just ran across the road.
Ha! Is that a joke?
No,
the roadrunner
it did.
just ran across the road?
It did. It just ran across. They like lean forward. They have a real long tail, and they move quickly.
I didn't know that was a
brown.
real animal.
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna be like the deer challenge. Now I gotta look for roadrunners.
Saw my first roadrunner.
Huh?
I saw my first roadrunner.
In this obituary, I don't know what this means, but it says his two daughters were the love of his life. The only problem is he had daughters and sons.
Welcome to Santa Fe, the capital of New Mexico. The name means Holy Faith in Spanish, and the city's full name, as founded, remains La Villa Real de la Santa Fe de San Francisco de Assisi, the royal town of Holy Faith of St. Francis of Assisi. And right as we get into town, we come upon the Cathedral Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi. This church was built in 1869 on the site of an older adobe church that was built in 1717. So this is a very old city. The city was founded in 1610 as the capital of Nueva Mexico, a province of New Spain. Railroads were extended into the west, and Santa Fe was originally envisioned as an important stop. But as the tracks were constructed, it was decided that it was more practical to go south of Santa Fe through Lamy. So after the railroad passed Santa Fe by, it lost population. However, the artists and writers, as well as retirees, were attracted to the cultural richness of the area, the beauty of the landscapes, and its dry climate. Local leaders began promoting the city as a tourist attraction. And here we are today. Around 1912, the city created the idea of imposing a unified building style, Spanish Pueblo Revival look, which was based on the many defining features of local architecture, such as vigas, rough exposed beams that extrude through the supporting walls, and thus visible, and canales, rain spouts cut into short parapet walls around flat roofs. These are features borrowed from many old adobe homes and churches built many years before and found in the pueblos. So I have to say, we didn't find New Mexico very enchanting, or welcoming for that matter. They had very strict mandates on masks and visitors, whereas if you don't have a license or some kind of ID saying that you're a New Mexican resident, you weren't able to get a room, campground, or pretty much anything else. So what we did end up doing was we did find a campground that we had no problem getting into. So whether they were that strict at a local level, I'm not sure, but that was the rule at the time. So we kind of zoomed our way through New Mexico and didn't look back. Maybe some other time. So we ended up staying at Rancheros de Santa Fe campground. Very nice campground. Quiet, picturesque. Glad we were able to stay there. It was a beautiful little campground with spacious sites and all different types of cactus and wildlife like lizards and whatnot. So we were really happy to find this place. So we ended up sitting out, watching the sunset, having a campfire, and settling in for the night. Heading out of New Mexico, this is where we really started to get that feeling of the Old West. The hot, dry climate, the rough, stony landscapes jutting up from the earth, the colored rock formations. Nature out here is completely foreign to what we're used to back in Pennsylvania, and we loved every minute of it. We happened upon this old abandoned gas station. Whiting Brothers was a chain of more than 100 gas stations established in 1926. Unfortunately, it's the same old story we've seen all along this road. The business began to decline in the 70s due to the fuel shortages, and then, like so many businesses along Route 66, traffic dropped as these roads were bypassed by the interstate, and the company went out of business. Some of the more viable stations were sold off, but most were just abandoned.
You can't see it in your side mirror.
No. I can see the far side, not the close one. I don't know if I could get in there to the pump. I think so. We have a Jeep. It's no problem.
I'm having internet right now. you go that way through it?
No.
Oh.
I go through it. I'm just looking at it. No sign of what kind of service station it used to be.
What's that say?
Let's see.
That's HM. I don't know what the first letter is.
And now we come to the Continental Divide Trading Post, a classic gift shop that straddles the Continental Divide, the line where water flows either west to the Pacific Ocean or east to the Atlantic. We found lots of fireworks, handmade Native American items, pottery, mostly from Mexico, I believe, drinks and snacks. This is the highest point on Route 66 at 7,295 feet. And here's another old station. Abandoned, of course, but still pretty cool. Just imagine the families that used to travel by here, maybe heading out to the West Coast for a little fun at the ocean, maybe heading out to see the ocean for the first time, or traveling salesmen, stopping to get a bite to eat, filling up the tank, and moving on to the next town. There's so many stories here. Lost to time. And off we go, on the road again, hurtling towards Arizona. Thanks for sharing in our memories. Until next time.